So I'm in the Englewood Cliffs area of New Jersey, in the Palisades, this very steep cliff, a drop off with a beautiful view of the Hudson River, New York on the other side. And back in 1992, September of 92, Stephen and Jody Scharf, they were a longtime married couple. They came here on a date to an overlook here, some wine, a blanket, a view. Jody fell 119 feet down off of these Palisades, these cliffs. A very tragic story, a very tragic situation, but as things unfolded, more questions than answers arose, and I'm going to show you the area where it happened and tell you the story of Stephen and Jody Scharf. And here it is. This is the Lover's Chair. It's a rock outcropping that sticks out, it jets out over the cliffs here with a tremendous drop. It was nighttime, they were drinking wine. Stephen claims to have gotten up off the rock and was going to the car so he could get a blanket. He turns around, he sees his wife, Jody, stand up, stumble, and fall. And that started an almost 2-decade investigation about what actually happened that night in 1992. So Stephen went out to the highway that's right here, flagged down somebody who ended up going to the police station, told them that a tragic situation had happened, that someone had fallen off of the cliff. The police came, the fire department came, and they actually had to rappel down the cliff here to try to find her, and they could not find her. They actually went all the way down to the bottom, and her body was not there. There is a ledge, though, that is 8 to 10 feet below the chair, this rock here, and that is where her purse was found with a couple of cards, credit cards or something, just laying out there. But no sign of the body, no sign of a body hitting the ledge, no hair or skin or blood or anything like that. It actually took them over an hour to find her body because she was so far away from where you would think she would have landed. She had landed between a big tree and a rock, massive damage to her head and her torso. She was pronounced deceased at 11:40 that night. Well, it's hard to say exactly where Jody would have landed because from down here, it's just cliffs everywhere, and I'm trying to line up exactly where that Lover's Chair outcropping is, but I'm over 100 feet down below it now, and it kind of all looks the same. However, one thing that I can say with certainty is that this is very difficult to get to. It's very steep, loose rocks. It was a real pain, but I wanted to come up here and see for myself and show you. I wanted to see if I could kind of find where she would have landed. But when the rescuers got down here, she wasn't here. In fact, it took them an hour to find her. Now, granted, it was dark and this is on a very steep slope, so they had to go slow, but she was not where they would have assumed that she would be. Apparently she landed 50 feet out, and that was one of the things that was very strange when it came to the investigation. How could she have possibly landed 50 feet out? You know, usually when you fall off something, if you were to say fall off, you know, a building or something like that, you would land relatively near the, you know, right around the bottom, below the building or right next to the building. But she was 50 feet out. So a lot of people think that she could have been pushed, but then on the defense side, they said, well, she could have hit, you know, a rock or something like that and had her body almost catapulted out further. It's hard to say. She could have hit dirt and earth that are further out and then continued falling, but I don't know if there was ever any sure sign of impact and then finally landing. I believe the investigators said that she likely landed right where she was. The reality is that they were having marital problems for years. In fact, they had an open marriage. Apparently both were seeing other people. Jody had filed for divorce just 2 weeks prior to her death. And also Stephen had taken out a $300,000 insurance policy on her just months earlier. And this policy would also pay out an additional $200,000 if she happened to die in an accident. Now, during the investigation, Stephen told the police that they had basically an open marriage, that yes, they had marital problems, that they were basically just dating other people, that he had dated a lot of women. It actually came out that he had 2 girlfriends, 2 people that he was seeing at the same time, and actually one of them said that he had told them that his wife had died, and that the other woman was really pressuring him to get a divorce from Jody. And he said something about just, after September, everything will be okay. And we all know what happened in September. He told investigators that he had planned this date in an attempt to save their marriage. He told police that this was, quote unquote, their spot. However, I believe Jody told her therapist that she had never been there before and was very reluctant to go with him. One of the strangest or most curious parts of this story is the fact that Stephen had a claw hammer along with his packed picnic. And when police asked him about it, he said he had been fixing a cabinet door at the house earlier in the day, and he just must have placed the hammer in with the picnic and meant to bring it back out to the garage. And so it was in the car with the rest of the picnic. And to add to all of the red flags and the weird situations with this whole story, according to her brother and her friends and family, Jody was scared of heights. She probably never would have climbed over this fence or sat on that rock or went anywhere near that rock, especially while drinking. When she was a child, the family could never fly anywhere because she was so afraid of flying. I believe they lived on a 3rd or 4th story apartment, and she would never go out to the balcony. So why would she ever go out on a rock, especially at night? Her therapist testified saying that she was afraid of Stephen, that she felt that Stephen was going to kill her. In fact, even going so far as to say that if anything happens to me, you probably know, you know who did it, type of thing. It was even said that when she served him with divorce papers, that he said, "I would rather see you dead than sign those papers." So back then, in the 90s, there just wasn't enough evidence of foul play. Jody's death was ruled undetermined and no charges were filed. Stephen eventually remarried and I believe continued living in the same house. In 2003, he finally collected that insurance money that had been sitting in an account for nearly 10 years, now worth over $770,000. It wasn't until a new county prosecutor reopened this case for a fresh look. And I believe Stephen was arrested in 2008, charged with murder. The trial wasn't until April of 2011, which lasted over a month, and even his own son took the stand against him. The jury deliberated in 2.5 days. Stephen was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. To this day, Stephen maintains his innocence, but there are still so many questions. Was that claw hammer plan A? Did Jody voluntarily come to this cliff? And most importantly, did she accidentally fall? Or was she pushed? I guess we'll never know for sure what exactly happened that night, but most people have a pretty good idea. It's a fascinating case for sure, and there's a lot more to it, but this was really just a short version of the story. Rest in peace to Jody Scharf. See you in the next video.